Thanks so much, and I feel so inadequate, Katrin. I don't know how great they'll be, but I'll try. I'm here as a poor and poorly dressed substitute for Andy Olson, who is our trade specialist on the committee, so you'll have to bear with me. I don't know a lot of you. I do know Ned in the back. We have been partners in an effort to do good things on a bipartisan basis in the past, so that's a comfort to me. I want to ask a couple questions to start off. First, I will say that I'm a Latin Americanist, or a Latin America specialist. That is what I do at the committee. I also cover human rights issues, and so I'm not necessarily a trade specialist, but I wanted to talk a little bit about something I've been wrestling with, and I think we are wrestling with regard to Central America, which is a region of the world where we do have a free trade agreement, and we have some challenges. They certainly do. So I thought it'd be helpful. But I wanted to ask a couple of questions. One is, how many people in this room know what a pupusa is? Okay, it looks like, come on. Oh, okay, good. And how many of you have been to Querétaro, Mexico, anytime recently? Aha, okay. So the reason I'm asking these questions is, if you know what a pupusa is, you know that we've got an awful lot of Central Americans here. And also, pupusas are delicious. And Salvadorans are extraordinary people, actually. The reason I'm asking about Querétaro is as follows. 25 years ago, my wife and I drove from Guatemala City to Querétaro, which is about 2/3 of the way up of Mexico. My wife was getting a paper on her research as a geographer. And I was working on a development project in Guatemala. And Querétaro was a dusty, lovely colonial town with crickets chirping. If you go to Querétaro today, something extraordinary has happened there. It is a manufacturing center on a par with pretty much anyone you will find in North America. I like to say, and it pleases Mexicans when I say this, that if you're in Querétaro, you could be in any North American city except the food's much better. And it really is stunning. Bombardier manufactures fuselages for airplanes there. There is a French company, French-American investment, that rebuilds jet engines. Commercial jets are flown down there from the United States and their engines are removed. And you can imagine how sophisticated this is. I don't know if you knew this, I didn't until recently, but Mexico now graduates more engineers than Germany. Kind of an interesting piece of information. Why am I telling you this? The reason I'm telling you this is that another fact that I think is kind of interesting is that we now have, as of this year, we have net negative migration from Mexico. And for several years, we've had net zero migration between the United States and Mexico. The other day, I met with the ambassador at large for Mexicans abroad from the Mexican Secretariat for Foreign Relations. And she was telling me that there are 500,000 English-speaking American citizens in Mexican schools. They're starting to have to institute Spanish as a second language in Mexican schools. Something has happened here. I think that the migration has to do in part with demographics. The demographics in Mexico have changed, but it has really a lot to do with the fact that Mexico is pretty much, in a lot of ways, already integrated, and you all know this, into the North American production platform. This is now a topic of, I think, some discussion in our presidential campaign right now, which is going to be a challenge for all of us. But the fact is, it's true, and I think one of the most interesting things that's happened in that regard was the fact that Mexico changed their constitution to allow foreign investment. What that really means is American investment in Pemex. We've got a lot of third rails of politics in this country. I don't think we actually have an equivalent third rail to that. Now, The Mexicans understood that the easy oil was going to run out in about 20 years, and it's a substantial part of their budget, particularly for education and other core budget categories. So they needed to do something to attract foreign investment. But it also means that most, not all, of at least the political class in that country has come to the conclusion that their future is tied to North America, and they're comfortable with that. There have been some recent changes in Latin America that I think are interesting. The populist forces of the left have had a pretty long run in the region. Actually, in some places like Brazil, they've done some extraordinary things in leveling income inequality, lifting policies that have frankly lifted millions out of poverty. A lot of that, of course, was driven by high commodity prices. But at the same time, things are starting to shift, and the landscape is shifting politically. I don't know that it's going to shift. The pendulum is going to swing absolutely, dramatically in the other direction. But it does raise a question about, from a policy perspective, are there, in this context, should we be thinking about things? I'm going to get back to Central America in a minute, but I thought I'd just talk a little bit more broadly about the region. And it is interesting because, obviously the election in Argentina with a new government there. I spoke with our ambassador, who's a great guy, he's a political appointee, and we were all delighted the president went to Argentina. The Argentines are very much engaging across the board on everything with us. So things are shifting in that regard. Brazilians have come and told us for the first time privately that they're interested in talking about their trade relationship with us. I think that there's an understanding, if you look at it, that economic growth in those countries that have trade agreements with us and that are more closely aligned with the United States, albeit in the low single digits, has continued. In those countries that are less aligned, it has actually dropped. In the case of Brazil, it's a rather difficult situation, akin to a depression. So that's the landscape. These are kinds of, if you look at it as I look at it, at least from a policy perspective, we had a hearing about this where we brought in a number of witnesses, private witnesses, to talk about this. It's not that there are not tremendous challenges, but it does mean that there are some opportunities there. And U.S. Investment in the region is, I think, far older, deeper, and certainly broader than that of other investors. Europeans, I think, are somewhat like us, but not really. I mean, we really invest across sectors. It's not just mineral extraction. It's services. It's manufacturing. So these are the kinds of things I think we need to be thinking about. Now, it brings me back to Central America and what we're trying to find. When the unaccompanied minor crisis happened, what was it now, a couple of years ago, we all freaked out. And we had a bit of a political partisan fight about it. Some people said it was the Obama administration's immigration policies that was causing this influx of young people. And others said that it was the conditions in Central America that were driving young people out. And I think there's some truth. I think the policies are not only the Obama administration's, I think there are collective policies on immigration. And I certainly think the conditions in the region, if I were a young Salvadoran, or particularly a Honduran, I would come here. I would not stay there.